let's run one. Now, we're gonna get back to the Great Fires and Great Floods, okay? I just wanted to show y'all, modern day collapse and explosions, because like I said, people still under the impression that, these buildings was built like 150 years ago when we didn't even have modern day equipment. So I figure I'd just, show a couple videos just to show just how hard engineering really is, okay? But we're gonna get back into Great Fires, all right? Now, I'm gonna show y'all a news cast of the Great Fire up in Hinckley, Minnesota, okay? Now, they give it to you one way. After this video play, I'm gonna tell y'all what really happened, okay? So let's take a look at this video.
QSO, and on this day in weather history, September 1st, 1894, a major fire incinerated the town of Hinckley, Minnesota. It was the deadliest fire in Minnesota history. After a 2-month drought combined with high temperatures, several small fires started in the forests of Pine County. At the time, loggers would strip trees of their branches, scattering them on the ground. They would burn the debris before moving on. However, some loggers did not. That leftover flammable debris littered the ground. Also contributing to the Great Fire was a temperature inversion that trapped the gases from the fires. The air came rushing down into the fires to create a vortex or tornado of flames, which then began to move quickly and grew larger and larger into a fierce firestorm. Temperatures rose to at least 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Barrels of nails melted into one mass, and in the yards of the Eastern Minnesota Railroad, the wheels of the cars fused with the rails. Some residents were able to escape by climbing into wells or by reaching ponds or the Grindstone River. Others crowded trains that narrowly escaped town. James Root, an engineer on a train heading south from Duluth, rescued about 300 people by backing up a train 5 miles to Skunk Lake, where passengers were able to escape the blaze. When it was over, the inferno destroyed 6 towns and 200,000 acres lay black and smoldering. It was so devastating that it lasted only 4 hours, but destroyed everything in its path. 418 perished, but some believe close to 800 was the actual figure. I'm Mark Mancuso.
Now, that was the news version of events, okay? Let me give it to y'all from another version, okay? Now, that train that they was mentioning, the guy that was actually, a conductor over that train was a guy named Mr. Blau, okay? Now, story goes is that when that train passed through Hinckley to get to like several towns over, at that time, it was a beautiful evening, okay? It was probably about 6:30, 7 o'clock. And say it was just a normal evening. People was outside doing what they do. Well, when this train get, to the other town and start picking up passengers, it got so bright outside, they thought the sun came back up. So, people was checking their watches because they just didn't understand what was going on. It had got so bright outside, they thought the sun came back up. Well, as the train passed through, got ready to pass through Hinckley, it had got extremely hot inside the car. They said it felt like somebody had cut an oven on. Then all of a sudden, it was this real thick smoke. Well, after they passed through that smoke, what they realized was the sun didn't come back up. That was Hinckley on fire. The fire was so hot and intense, it made it look like the sun came back up several times over. That wasn't even nowhere near the fire. Well, as they was passing through Hinckley, they seen what they thought was like burning bushes, but that was actually people that had burst into flames. The people on the car train car started getting so hot that Mr. Blau started putting blankets on them, okay, and throwing water on them. The fire got so hot that the train tracks, a train yard over in Hinckley, it fused the train cars to the railroads, okay? That's how hot and intense that fire was, okay? Now, when they got a few towns over, you know, the next day, here come the rescuers go to Hinckley to see about the survivors. As they get there, they find the survivors in the other town, but as they get to Hinckley, they can't find nobody, not one body. But as they get to the lake, what they found was, you know, people had jumped in that lake, but that some of them didn't even have skin on their bodies. The water was so hot, it had boiled their skin off to the bone. That's how hot that fire was, okay? Now I want you to sit down and think about something. That fire destroyed 6 towns in a matter of 4 hours. 6 towns in the matter of 4 hours. I want you to think now, it's fires going on right now, okay? Just imagine in 4 hours, it disintegrated 6 towns, okay? You just have to sit here and ask yourself, what created a fire that destroyed 6 towns in 4 hours? The fire got so hot that some of the ponds and lakes that they went to, it wasn't even no more water in it. It had turned it into steam, okay? This fire got so hot, it fused railroad cars to the railroad tracks. And then they thought it was daytime in like several towns over. And this was another fire that they was finding people in some of those towns. Some of those people didn't lose their life from the fire. The fire was so hot and intense, it sucked the oxygen out of their bodies miles away from the actual fire. So that's the part that they leave out the news about Mr. Blair and his stories. Okay, and a lot of other stories that were passed down. I just want you to think, 6 towns in 4 hours. 6 towns in 4 hours. And then some of the eyewitnesses that was like on the train, what they described, like, you know, they already had those big pine trees up there. You know, some stories you read, they'll say, some of them pine trees were like 200-300 feet in the air. You couldn't even see. If you was on the ground, you couldn't even see all the way up to see how tall those trees actually was. And they said fires had done went over those trees like a tsunami. There's some places up there now that they just roped off and left. And then, you know, vegetation just don't grow around it. But if you go in some of the woods, some of the stories I done heard from elders and things like that, you'll stumble across a whole abandoned town that just burned up and it's just frozen time. Okay, like especially up that way, around that time. Okay, but that they left that key parts up out of that news broadcast, especially Mr. Blair. Okay, he was the train conductor that night. But anyway, y'all jump in the comments and let me know.